Okay, thank you again. If we can reconvene this meeting at 11:14. Thank you all. Appreciate for that short break, and really appreciated all the speakers for it and against it, or I should say not in favor of it. And so again, thank you for all of you for showing your interest in this item. And I understand this is a petition that has been brought forward. We have set forth by staff who, as you well know, moves forward with reviewing all of our charters that come forward to the district. And we've had many over the years since I've been on this board. And we also, denied the last charter in such that it went to the county for approval. So people need to be aware of these things. Again, as we move through this, however it happens to go, we will have discussion. We will have each board member speak to, how they feel about whatever it is that we're talking about at the time or at that juncture. So with that said, I understand the recommendation, but I would also entertain a motion to see if there's a motion to approve the charter.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Orange County Classical Academy Charter.
I'd like to advise the board that you are approving a document that requires additional work. So if you were to move to an approval at this time, I would suggest that you do it with a conditional approval to correct the petition where there were inaccuracies, and not move forward with approving the document as it is.
Okay, this is for now. Thank you for your point on this. But
I have a motion on this.
Mr. Ledesma's motion.
okay, so it's standing. We have a first and a second, and now we move to a discussion on this. So we open up for discussion.
Anybody? I
You know,
know,
we haven't
I think
heard-
our student member would like to speak, actually. She
Oh,
mentioned-
Yes, may we speak?
you were absent from your seat when they said you wanted to speak, so I'm sorry.
Oh, well, may I speak?
You're back.
I am back. So we are the voice of the students. My name's Lucy. I go to Orange High. I took some notes here as I was listening to some of those people speak. And what was a little saddening was a lot of these people were kind of hating on our public schools, and specifically in this district, saying that we're failing and that we have really low test scores. And I would urge you guys to look at the demographic at our schools and say we can't compare ourselves to many of the other school districts that they were speaking of. Additionally, I love my school. I go to Orange. I know we don't have the best reputation, but I can say that I've gotten so many amazing opportunities, and I would not choose to go anywhere else. Also, if we were taught with pornographic material and taught to use sex toys and sex ed, I think I would remember that. So that's just not a thing. And you guys were urged by the district staff to deny this charter, and I looked through it real quick, and it's pretty detailed. And we have to trust you guys because we can't put our vote out, and you guys do represent us as students. And I've spoken to many students at my school, and they have a lot of concerns about this charter, and I ask you as a student of this district to listen to what we have to say and to deny this charter.
May I also speak?
Absolutely, you're here.
Thank you. So I very, very much agree. Many of the speakers who were talking about OCCA were saying that they needed an option to send their kids to. And I would just like to point out that our public schools are very viable options. They were just kind of disregarding them and being kind of disrespectful, in my opinion, towards the schools that we already have. And also, I would like to point out that there are already 4 other amazing charter schools in our district. So I don't think that having a new charter school to go to should be an issue. And also, I go to Canyon High School, and I have so many opportunities here. I'm able to be a lawyer in mock trial. I'm able to be a security hacker in Cyber Patriot. I'm able to be a leader of America in Junior State of America. And there's just so many opportunities at public schools where I don't think that we should be spending our money in OCCA, which has very, very few programs based on fact. A lot of them are based just kind of like in thin air. So I think that we should be putting our funds into public schools that already have a foundation where we can thrive, instead of putting it into OCCA. And I please, please, please urge you to vote no on admitting OCCA into the district.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Everyone's like, no.
I was just going to say that we've had some discussion about this charter, and we haven't heard much from you nor from Mr. Ledesma, so perhaps we could sort of go down the line, and perhaps you 2 gentlemen could start.
I'd be happy to. We've got a lot of input, both sides. All board members have received plenty of input. We have the resolution. I feel I've received a lot of opinions, including staff's opinion. So based on that, I've evaluated for myself, and I'm going to be giving my own opinion this evening. And so I'm prepared to vote.
Go ahead. I'll speak last.
I'd like to hear from you. I haven't heard anything from you yet. I can speak for myself. I was participating a lot in the hearings, and I'd kind of like to hear from you.
I think a lot of people would, but
You've been here so long, so I'm deferring to you.
okay, well, I appreciate that. People already spoken so lovely of me, and so that admiration and respect is beyond belief. It's that warm, fuzzy blanket that I receive. We sit in these chairs. I've said it many, many times that locally elected officials have the opportunity to get spoken to up front versus elected officials that are far away. So we are more on the ground as a representative. I was born and raised in Orange. We have family values that go back to 1920. So we have a history in this town. Somebody spoke about earlier about the segregated school. I had family that went to segregated schools. So if, other folks want to sit up here and preach to me about the right and wrong and what's different, there's a lot of inaccuracies in what was spoken. And so you have to look at it in its totality. It's just like in law enforcement. You have to look at the evidence you have in front of you and make a decision based on the criteria of what does the law say. Well, not only what does the law say, but what does case law say? But also your training as well and how you're going to basically fix the problem, if you will. So you look at all the evidence that is presented towards us, and that's what we have to look at. Unfortunately, you're receiving something in front of you that outlines based on what staff is presented. It's been mentioned in how it's being presented to us. Is there some biases behind it? Could this been a 3-page document versus a 16-page or however many pages? I can't remember, so I apologize. So you have to put it in its context of what it is and what you're looking at. I heard conversations about it being religion. They're going to teach about Christianity. Okay. But if you look at your state standards, we already teach religions in public schools with public funds. So let's denounce that right away. And you all in the education field know that, is that's what we teach in public schools. So it's not something that's new or that this charter is going to be teaching about Christianity. We already teach it in our public schools. So there's number one. You know, it's been mentioned about contributions. You know, those are going to come home. They're going to come back and forth till the cows come home, as they say. You know, it's been mentioned I receive donations, things of that nature. Yes, it is in the documents. By law, we have to report it. But it was also mentioned, too, my other colleagues have reached teachers' unions money, many thousands of dollars, even from 4 years ago. It was over $22,000 given trying to unseat 2 board members at that time. And then even recently. So don't sit here and pretend that all of a sudden, ooh, I'm being looked at because I was giving money. Well, then none of us, or I should say only a few of us, should be voting on the teachers' contracts or the classified contracts as stated, because that's the same assumption you're making with what you presented forward against me and Ms. Lebsack. So again, let's put this in context and let's put it in reality. Before you want to start shooting arrows, step back a little bit and listen first and learn a little. You know, again, the curriculum, it's based on a curriculum that's already been proven. It's out there for view. Again, you can view something how you want to, and you can interpret how you want to. Isn't that a lot of what we've been seeing? Interpretation is how you interpret it yourself. What are you putting behind that interpretation? Are you putting facts? Are you putting evidence? What are you putting forward? Just because my ideology tells me I'm against it, therefore I'm against it and you shouldn't do it. Fine. That's what I have to respect about you, is how you think, and that's your ideology. I don't disrespect you for that. That's how you think. So again, there's a lot of discrepancies in here, and when you look at this, and I had opportunity, as I mentioned in the beginning, is that we received a lot of information to us up to this point of all of this. Not only did we receive this resolution just like you did, we also received rebuttal information as to this information that is being announced. So you have to put it all in context. It's just like I mentioned before, and it's not anything new that I brought forward to this board, is that assumptions. Well, we make assumptions every single school year. Do we meet them on day one? The answer is no, we don't. We fall short by hundreds of kids. So again, it's just something like that. So again, you look at everything and again, you put it in the context of it. You know, and so, you know, it depends on where I stand, but I'm just looking at evidence and seeing what it is. And just being able to really, you know, put focus in respecting each other's decisions, whether we move forward or not. I agree with the young ladies over here. I'm a product of OUSD. My kids, who currently go to OUSD, my daughter, who finished college, went to OUSD. You know, my father is a graduate of Orange High School many years ago, but he's still a graduate. So as I told you, we have a lot of history in this community. So it's not something new or something I don't know of. So I've been here a very long time, probably longer than some of you, because I was born and raised here. So again, as I ask for your respect, just respect us individually and how we come forward and how we may vote. That's all I ask for. And again, as I mentioned in the very beginning, guess what? The sun will still shine tomorrow. So, you know, I'll leave it right there for right now and allow others to participate in this conversation. So again, we're in discussion. Please, Ms. Moffett.
Thank you. First of all, before I really start my comments, Lori Lee Flowers came up and made a statement. Is she still here? Well, would you, her friends and colleagues, just express to her my thanks and appreciation and that of all the board members for her career taking care of our students. How wonderful. We're so blessed. Thank you. And then I wanted to address something personal and set the record straight. I was honored to have the support of the teachers some of the times that I ran. Actually, I had no, I didn't. They didn't support me every time I ran. Sometimes they gave me monetary contributions, and sometimes they didn't. But I know, I was a teacher. I know of the critical importance of what teachers do, and that a school board ought to be aligned with its teachers because these are the people who are on the front lines. These are the people who are carrying out what we decide. And when you reduce it down to its simplest elements, a school is just a teacher and a student. The rest is just decoration. And so I'm delighted when I have the support of the teachers, and I take that as a vote of confidence that means something to me and that I think is important. But then I'd also like to say that last time I didn't get $10,000 from the teachers. I got $1,500 in cash, $5,500 in in-kind contribution, and for every $1 that I got from the teachers, I got $4 from individuals. So it wasn't 97% of my entire campaign coffers. And there's another big difference. The teachers don't come back and ask for something afterwards. I want to say something about the curriculum, the personnel, the governance, and the community support. First of all, curriculum is not aligned to standards. And this is not just opinion, this is the studied response of our extremely competent staff. We have award-winning administrators who studied hundreds of hours to put together the recommendation of this charter for the protection of any potential student that might choose to go to that charter and the protection of Orange Unified School District. Because a bad charter is not good for anybody. Curriculum-wise, the plans for special education, teachers allotted to special education, budget and curricula for special education, all were deficient. All were deficient. That's not an opinion. That is a studied response from our professional staff. This curriculum has a religious and cultural bias. The curricular focuses on Western civilization and Judeo-Christian concepts, values, and beliefs to the exclusion of others. Religious documents like the Bible, as it says in the Education Code, and as one of Mrs. Lebsack's friends and perhaps I'll just leave it as friend, said in an email, there are parts of the Education Code that spell out the correct use of documents like the Bible. And here's an example. If you as a teacher are teaching something that, for example, in language arts, a literary construct, and you want to illustrate that to your student, you can use a novel, you can use a historical document, you can use the Bible, you can use a lot of different types of documents, source documents, original documents, whatever you want to talk, to help you illustrate that particular construct in literature. The same thing in history. If you want to talk about what are the elements, what are the important factors that affected a civilization or a culture, you can cite their artwork, their music, their religion, their whatever. these are ways to illustrate a non-religious concept, and that is the culture of the time or the place. That's what all of those citations from Education Code were talking about. They weren't talking about the permissive, being given permission to teach religion in a public school. We cannot do that. It's against the law, and we cannot do that. The curriculum for the Orange County Classical Academy does not describe at all the curriculum that they will use to satisfy the requirements of the 2016 law, the California Healthy Youth Act, regarding comprehensive sexual health education. This is not optional. It's a requirement. Every public school has to teach this, and if a charter school wants to be a charter school and receive public funding, they have to do it too. And I even asked about that, and they were, the presenters were non-responsive, basically. This curriculum comes from a religious university and was originally created for religious schools. Petitioners Bucher and Barkey are enthusiastic advocates for religious education and religion in the public school, and they have been for a long time. Proponents such as Dr. Michael Scott is himself a religious educator. His PhD is in religious education from a Bible college or seminary in Louisiana, I understand. I think this is my time to talk, is it not, Mr. President? Dr. Hollitz, the principal of St. John's Lutheran School in Orange, has written to our school board in 2 separate emails. This is a career educator in religious education, warning us about the religious bias he sees in this charter. He knows what he's looking at. He sees a religious bias in this charter. As a career religious educator in religious schools, he has no opposition to private religious education. And neither do I. I went to Catholic school from kindergarten to high school. But it wasn't public. It wasn't a public school. It was a private school. Dr. Hollitz recognizes the religious connotation within the curriculum and warns us of this curriculum, reminding us that a public religious charter school is not allowed by California law. Just isn't allowed. He opposes the authorization of the Orange County Classical Academy. With all of these red flags, as a board member and as a reasonable person, I have to ask myself, if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, like someone said, I think it's a duck. So I think we have to conclude that. And if we authorize this, and this charter school began teaching religious stuff, we would have to monitor that. We could be in trouble. They could certainly be in trouble. We could be sued. There are all kinds of trouble. In terms of personnel, because of the analysis that our expert staff did in the arena of personnel, looking at all the different types of scenarios, trying to divine which kind of mix of 12 teachers might be the ones coming to this charter school, including the teachers who expressed having a material interest in coming and working for that school. Their budget doesn't afford those teachers, doesn't afford even those teachers. But also they analyze 2 other different kind of scenarios in terms of, you know, what might be the mix of beginning teachers, middle career teachers, and because they all have different salary requirements, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever way you analyze it, their budget doesn't have enough money in it to afford those teachers. And so they would be then the lowest paid in Orange County. And as a result, they would not be able to attract nor retain their professional staff. Teachers would not be the best and brightest. And there would be high rates of turnover. None of those things are good for kids. It's not good for kids, and it's not good for the school. Headmaster Ellis does not have a positive work history regarding professional judgment. She has made negative headlines which reflect badly on her and her school. And this is the headmaster of the school. The board of the Orange County Charter Classical Academy has an obvious absence of budget building and basic finance skills to allow the kind of budget that they allowed. They submitted 2 separate budgets, neither of which lined up with their operational narrative. And this apparently was the result of contracting out to or privatizing their financial functions to a for-profit company, and then of their own carelessness in not catching the errors. Many functions will be contracted out in this charter to for-profit individuals and companies, finance, human resources, and more. I'm also worried that the petitioners are not professional educators, but rather they are ideological and political activists with their own agenda. You can tell these petitioners are not serious professional educators when you see this charter petition so full of inaccuracies and so carelessly prepared. It's an affront to the whole idea of a charter school. It's an affront to the seriousness of education. It's an affront to this school district. Strong evidence exists to suggest that this charter was hurriedly and opportunistically prepared and submitted so as to escape the effects of newly adopted legislation that provides additional and long-needed safeguards for the students of school districts who are asked to authorize a charter school. Safeguards, these new safeguards are meant to give some measure of protection against negative financial effects that charters have on existing students and existing schools. These petitioners knew this. That's why they hurried to get this in before the end of this calendar year. Mr. Bucher is a lawyer and a partisan political activist who has demonstrated for decades his intention to privatize public education and to introduce religion into public schools. He created the Education Alliance decades ago, within which he and his associates, such as Frank Urey, Eric Woolery, Jim Righeimer, and others, worked to persuade the school board of Orange Unified School District. Nobody on this board at the time, but the school board of Orange Unified School District, he wanted to persuade them in the late 1990s to privatize our bus transportation. And they did that. As a result, that board signed an attractive deal for the following school year with a private bus company, and they fired all OUSD bus drivers. But when the new school year started, the next fall, the company could not afford to honor the contract that they had signed, and they called on the first day of school, called the superintendent and said, you know, we're sorry, we just won't be able to live up to that contract. And they left our students standing on street corners, no buses coming. That was the privatization experiment. Obviously, that was not a successful move for the children of Orange Unified School District. Several years later, in 2001, 3 members of that board were recalled. And as a part of that recall, Mr. Ortega and I were elected to serve in their place, and we've been here ever since. In the year 2000, which was some few years after the bus privatization debacle, Mr. Bucher and his associates worked to persuade that same OUSD board to become one of several authorizers of the California Charter Academy, a fraudulent organization that used tax dollars to enrich themselves. Among the abuses Mr. Stephen Cox, the leader of the California Charter Academy, engaged in were that he hired his family and friends, he gave them company cars, generous salaries with retroactive raises, had lavish parties that were called retreats at the Disneyland Hotel, even established a for-profit business that he owned from which the charter schools purchased their textbooks. This is called self-dealing, and it's illegal in public schools. When in 2004, Orange Unified School District, as well as the state of California, suspected wrongdoing, the California Charter Academy's misdeeds were discovered, their charter was revoked, and the state of California prosecuted Mr. Cox and the California Charter Academy for fraudulent use of more than $25 million in taxpayer funds. California Charter Academy's network of charters closed suddenly, leaving all those students suddenly without a school. Obviously, another unsuccessful move for the children of Orange Unified School District at the behest of Mr. Bucher. The California Charter Academy is the worst case of taxpayer fraud in the history of California charter schools. This is my time to talk. You have wide.
Oh. Okay. Hold on a second. Hold on. Hold on. Okay. Thank you. So please continue your remarks.
All of the people who come and give comments in a public meeting like this have broad protections under the law. We also have broad protections under the law to speak. I will continue. Currently, Mr. Bucher returns to Orange Unified, bringing to bear...
Mr. Muffin, I just want to, I mean, I know we have protection. So if this gentleman decides to sue the district, is it prudent that you continue to put his name? Maybe you can just kind of just skip the name and just say what the issue is. And I don't know how this is related to the current charter petition that's... I mean, I hear a lot of innuendo, a lot of assumptions, innuendo after innuendo, storytelling, and nothing that's directly related to this.
Okay.
Okay.
Please, go ahead.
Can I please say something?
Hold on a second.
Okay.
President Ortega, may I say something? I realize this is a heated debate and people are uncomfortable with what's being set up here, but I'm sure that you would understand that they've listened to you for several hours. You've given public input. This is the governing board's meeting. This is their opportunity to dialogue with each other so they can make a good decision. So I realize you have feelings and emotions, just like Mr. Ortega said earlier, and this is their opportunity to speak. And they have to make a tough decision here. And they've listened to you for over 3 hours. And so it's almost midnight. They need to have a chance to dialogue as a governance team and make a decision. And I respect the fact that you had the time to talk, but I also have to protect my governing board to allow them, all of them, to have an opportunity to make a good decision and to speak about what their viewpoint is on the charter.
The final point regarding Mr. Bucher. Currently, he returns to Orange Unified School District, bringing to bear enormous economic and political pressure on members of this school board. First, in his role as one of the hosts of a 2016 election season fundraiser, benefiting 2 of our school board members who were running for election. This fundraiser was held during the exact same time that our school board was doing its due diligence on another charter petition. And the lead petitioner for that charter was also on the host committee for that fundraiser. This seems highly improper. As Judge Riddle says, the law doesn't prohibit it, but it seems highly improper. Mr. Bucher's efforts to control board member decision-making has also come in the form of soliciting intense pressure from high-ranking partisan officials to approve this charter. I wonder if those high-ranking partisan officials have even read this petition, and if they are aware of its glaring deficiencies. I wonder if they know of the misleading information that Mr. Bucher disseminated to the community when he was getting signatures for this petition, and continues to disseminate about Chapman University's hoped for and widely advertised but non-existent priority admission or scholarships to Chapman University. Mr. Bucher talks of being eager to partner with Orange Unified School District, but it's easy to see the dangers of partnering with a person who uses such coercive tactics. How do we work with such a person, if we are doing oversight of the charter school? How would he respond if violations were identified in his school? What pressures would he bring to bear at that time? There's no place for partisanship on a school board, and there's certainly no place for a petitioner who strong-arms board members. Adopting this charter could very well be another very unsuccessful move for the children of Orange Unified School District. In terms of governance, this charter petition contains no guarantee that parents will have a voice on the charter board of the school. I feel strongly that the governance has to be responsive to the parents of the children. I would insist that its governance structure require at least 2 charter board positions be reserved for parents of students attending the school, and that those 2 parents be elected by the other parents and not just appointed by the board. Might get some responsiveness and also a modicum of accountability to the parents in that way. And lastly, in terms of community support, in all of our public hearings, and as was demonstrated tonight, I have seen few, if any, actual local members of our community in support of this charter application. The inverse is true. There are many community members and local teachers who oppose this charter application. We got many emails, 10 or so emails from people from the last 2 weeks opposing this charter position. And I feel strongly that my primary obligation is to the students and families and community right here in Orange Unified School District. And I also would just correct the record by saying, as many people have said, we do have charter schools here. We have four charter schools within the boundaries of Orange Unified School District, 2 of whom we chartered, 2 of whom we didn't charter. I might also say the 2 of whom that we did not charter are struggling. I hope they have success, but they are struggling. So we have lots of choice. Plus, we have students who live in this neighborhood and go to school in this neighborhood. We have 42 schools in our school district. Parents and students can choose from any of those. So I think we have plenty of choice. And also, I think there's an overarching concept that when you're entertaining a charter petition, you ought to be assured that that charter is at least as good as, if not better than, what you offer in your school district. And there's no question about the fact that this does not meet that standard. So it's really troubling for me to think about the effects that could happen. It's very troubling. And, I just worry about I worry about the kids like at the California Charter Academy. Those kids did not get a good education and were left in the lurch. I don't want any more kids to be left in the lurch, and I don't want lawsuits to come down to us. One of the struggling charters that came to us to be chartered and we did not charter them, they misrepresented by accident or by whatever the number of students that they would get. And they got about half of that number. And so then they were allocated a whole bunch of money that passed through Orange Unified School District that they had to then pay back hundreds of thousands of dollars because they didn't get the number of students that they said they would give. And so we're at risk for those kinds of things. So anyway, if I've gone on too long, I apologize, but you can tell I'm passionate about this.
Next closed session, right?
Thank you. Anyone else? Can you please, come on, folks, it's getting late. It's already 10 to midnight. Let us finish discussing this item, please. We want to get through this. Next, please. Anyone else have?
You actually already heard from me 3 months ago, so you know where I stand on this. What I do like about this charter is actually the curriculum. Just as an educator, ever since Common Core was enacted, there was a shift in education. Specifically, literature was cut down to 50% and to include 50% informational text in grades K through 4, then 45% literature and 55% informational texts, then 30% literature and 70% informational text in grade 12. Just as an educator, I had an issue with this ever since it was enacted. However, since it was adopted by the state, it was pretty much a done deal, so I felt like we were stuck with it, so you didn't hear that much from me about it. So I said, there's nothing we can do about it, we're stuck with it, with the exception of charter schools. Well, with the Classical Academy, parents have a great alternative for their children. I really like that a classical academy focuses on primary documents. Students get to analyze documents for themselves and make their own opinions. This promotes free individual thinking, not group thinking. I also appreciate that students get to learn Latin. I think this will be extremely beneficial, especially to students planning to study law or medicine in the future. Just as an extra note, we did receive the rebuttal to the resolution, and I believe the answers were satisfactory. My opinion, I wish that every school district would have an alternative like this, Classical Academy, to give families a choice. Go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for staying here. I know it's getting late, it's midnight, but obviously we all share a passion for education. We care about our kids. We want the best for our kids. And I think we all can agree that that's one commonality that we all have. And I want to thank the kids for staying late because, it is actually finals this week, and they have finals tomorrow, and for them to be here until 10, 11, and to stay to speak, it obviously is important for them to share their opinion. And so I really would like our board to really consider strongly what they had said. I want to give some background on how I came on the board because, there seems to be some misunderstanding about why unions supported us. I am a parent in OUSD. I have 3 kids that went through K through 12 here. And one of the reasons why I decided to run for school board is because I saw that there was some changes that needed to be made. Chris and I and a couple of other people, we got involved with the Measure K and Measure S, and that's how we got started here. We didn't come in through a political side. We didn't come in because we knew somebody. In fact, I don't know hardly any politicians when I first started, and it's gotten to the point where I am just so jaded now because it's become so political, and I'm really saddened by that. Because my priority coming here was just for the students. And, to see it come to a point where people are drawing lines based on ideology, based on what party they belong to, it's really sad. I am no party preference, and I did that for a reason, because I wanted people to see how I voted instead of thinking that I was aligning with one way or another. I want them to see that I was here for the kids. And so when I decided to run, the union approached me, gave me an interview, and they saw that their priorities were aligned with mine. And so that's why they endorsed me. That's why they were willing to give money. I never even reached out to the union to give money. I didn't even know anyone in the union, to be honest. I was PTA president over at El Rancho, and that's a charter school. And I supported this charter school because I believed in it. it was one of our schools, and I felt so strongly that, it was doing well. And then I was also PTA president over at Canyon High School, and that was also a school that is thriving. All 3 of my kids have graduated from Canyon. 2 of them already graduated from college, and they are leading successful, thriving lives. I'm so super proud of them, and a lot of it is because they had a great education in OUSD. Was it perfect? Maybe, maybe not, but it was a great education. And so when I hear people attacking public schools or not giving them choices, I would say my kids got so many choices while they attended public schools, and so it's also disheartening to hear that too. So I want to go on by saying too that, just listening to the speakers, I really take it to heart. I really want to understand where people are coming from. I see that a lot of speakers that are for the charter, they don't necessarily, most of them don't live in our district. Some of them are blanket charter supporters, and they're not really understanding what this charter is about. I've had this big binder with me for the last couple months, walking around with it, looking at it. We reviewed papers. I mean, this is Christmas, the week before Christmas, and we should be shopping, but instead, we have our noses in these papers. I mean, even yesterday, I got this, and it's so much to understand. And so sorry, I didn't get my Christmas cards out. I just want to say that, I have a lot of concerns about this charter. And it's not because it's a charter school, but because of the fundamentals in this charter. Mrs. Moffitt already addressed some of the concerns I have about it as far as the curriculum is concerned and the education side. I'm going to focus on the budgeting side and the finance. In my opinion, I see that our staff went through a lot of work. I believe they spent over 500 plus hours in the last couple months just looking over this charter, and that doesn't include any attorney time. That doesn't include all our time on the board looking at this charter. So I think they've done a thorough job in making their recommendations. And so I respect our staff and their opinion. So I want to go over some of the budget issues that I have. First of all, when the budget was submitted, there were 2 different budgets, and the response, which just came in yesterday to it, was that, sorry.
Just so you know, I'm texting my husband right now to tell him I'm still here. Okay, so don't think I'm doing anything weird.
All right. So, yeah, there was 2 different budgets, and they said that it was just a administrative error, that the, one calculations didn't have COLA and the other one didn't, something like that. But the bottom line is that when you submitted this petition, it wasn't thoroughly looked at. It was sloppy. So I have concerns about that. You can't say that, oh, it was a mistake, we overlooked it, and because we're trusting these same people to look after our kids. Another part of the budget that I have concerns about is that, I know OCCA said that they had $310,000, I believe, that's already in their bank account from a line of credit. So what that means is that this is not money that was given to them. They got a line of credit, a loan, and so they have to pay this loan back. And in their response yesterday, they said that they're going to be paying back the loan because this loan was given to them to start up charter schools, and the repayment plan begins the second year of operation to be paid back $50,000 per year over the following 5 years. And so my concern is at the end of 2021, after paying back some of this loan and other financing needs, they will have a cash flow of $15,000 in their bank. You can't run an operation with only $15,000 cash in the bank. That's just not fiscally prudent. Sorry, I have to get some water. It was mentioned that, the starting salary of a teacher in OCCA will be about $60,000, while OUSD is at $47,000, and so they can make that work. But there is only one person in OUSD that makes that starting salary of $47,000, and 2% of all the teachers make under $60,000. 2%. So that means that this OCCA will be...
Excuse me, Mrs. Yamasaki, I think you got your figures wrong now. 47,000, there isn't just one person that makes 47,000 in this district.
Teacher.
Yeah, I know. I was in that same meeting. There's like 24. They said 2% of 1,200
No, one makes
make
47,
47,000
but 2% makes 60,000 or under.
or under. 68,000 or under.
Yes, and I did clarify that.
Okay.
All right. So my point is, it's a very small percentage of our teachers. And if OCCA starts up, they're going to be paying $60,000 for the majority of their teachers, because that's what they budgeted. They budgeted all 12, 13 of their teachers at $60,000 each. So they're going to be hiring new teachers, teachers that don't have the experience. And that concerns me, because there's not going to be any longevity. These teachers will just get the experience, and then they'll go somewhere else. I mean, that's been proven in the past by a lot of charter schools. The turnover rate for teachers in charter schools is really high. And that may not be a big deal for the teachers, but it's a big deal for our students. So that's another concern of mine on the finance side. And sorry if I get a little nervous. Like I said, I did not intend on running in politics. I'm a parent first, and so I have a lot of concerns. So the other thing, the question I have is, about the business plan for the budget. It was mentioned that, a third party did it, sorry. And I want to know, how has OCCA incorporated into its business plan the ability to serve the multitude of varying needs of our students, in particular, the needs of special education students? And so we brought that up as one of our concerns, and the response was, well, we'll just let go of some of the aides and we'll just hire a special ed teacher. I mean, we have kids in our district that has varying needs. You don't know what kind of kid is going to step in your door. They could require a simple IEP that they just need accommodations. But there are special ed kids that need extensive care. They need specialized day class. They need occupational therapy. They need speech therapy. They need psychological help. It's not in their budget to do that. And I'm concerned about that, because we have a duty to take care of all of our kids, not just cherry pick some kids, but all of our kids. And so I do not see how the special ed component is aligned with the budget. And I see that in the budget it says that they budgeted $72,000 for special education services. But just based on the parity of OUSD, it should be closer to about $180,000. So that means they're at a deficit of over $100,000 in being able to provide the needs being able to meet the needs of the students. Some of these special ed kids need $20,000 to $50,000 worth of services. And you can't say no to them. I mean, we have a duty to give them a free and appropriate public education. I have even way more concerns, but those are the highlights, and I will, pass it on to my colleague so that they have an opportunity to speak, but I may, have an interject or come back later as I think of things. Thank you.
Thank you. It's very late. I just want to say thank you to everybody who came out, those that came out in favor of the charter, those that came out in opposition. I appreciate your time. I think it's very clear people are very passionate about things. I hate to see when things get contentious and ugly between you. I mean, you've got people complaining about them being mean and you're being mean and whatever. Let's just all grow up. We need to make a big decision here, and it's a decision that will impact our children. It's a decision that's going to impact the taxpayers. It's a decision that's going to potentially affect our credit rating for our district, which then in turn is potentially going to affect what our taxpayers pay when we sell bonds on Measure S. This is a big deal. This is not a small little thing. I appreciate the passion that these people have that came from far and wide. Very few of you are actually in Orange Unified, but I still appreciate that you came out here to tell us about classical education and how important it is to you. But this is what I have to say about it. If you love classical education and you want classical education, this is not the vehicle to get classical education. Because the problem is, this is a fiscal nightmare. It's a curricular nightmare. It is not going to make it. And that's what staff told us. That's the problem. But you know what's really cool is we just appointed Mr. Irvin tonight as Executive Director of Innovation and Excellence in Education. And guess what? Orange Unified School District could have a classical academy. Orange Unified School District doesn't need a charter school to put a K through 12 or a K through 6 or whatever classical education here, because that's what we do. We innovate and we do things here. We can provide it. It does not have to be through a charter school. And guess what? If we provide it, you're in a fiscally stable environment. You're not at risk of violating the law because we know how to follow the law. And we can get it done, basically. So I appreciate the passion. And if you really, truly feel passionate about that and you're in Orange Unified, please come talk to Mr. Irvin about your ideas, because I'm sure he would be all ears. We're all here for the same reason. We want our kids to get the best education, and we are trustees to 27,000 kids, not 300, not 600, 27,000 children that are in our care. I take that as a sacred duty to make sure that I am not turning these children over to people that I can't trust, that don't have a proper plan, that don't have the money to run the program they say they're going to run, that tell me one thing, and when I call them on it, say, oops, sorry, we just got it wrong, got over our skis, whatever. That's not okay. Our kids' lives and futures are so beyond important, and it's not a game. It's not a game to keep going back and forth about, oh, we're a Chapman affiliate, we're a Hillsdale affiliate, oh, we're not, oh, well, let's tell people we are. It shows up on social media that you're, associated with Chapman. It's become just not good. And it's become very partisan, and it's become very political, and that's wrong. When I ran, somebody really smart told me, our kids aren't Democrats, they're not Republicans, they're kids. And we shouldn't be making decisions based on political party preference. It shouldn't happen. It's wrong. I think that what happened with this is the law obviously changed, and the law has traditionally, for 27 years in California, favored charter schools. We're required to accept charter schools if they meet the criteria. But if they don't meet the criteria, then we are permitted to reject them. And that's what's happening with this school. So I think what happened is the law changed. It takes effect in July. It's a lot harder to get a petition for a charter school granted after July. And I think that the petitioners rushed their petition through because it is so full of mistakes. It is so full of mistakes that nobody could really take this thing seriously and put our kids in these schools. Again, great idea, wrong vehicle. You will not get what you want with this OCCA. They can't sustain it. Great, you get $150,000 in donations, and that's wonderful, and congratulations on that. That is not sustainable. Are you going to know if you get $150,000 next year? What if you get $5,000 next year? It's not sustainable. That's not what you rely on when you're running a school. I have a lot of things here, but the petition itself, everything that's mentioned outside the four corners of this petition, this document, is basically just noise. You're not bound by it. You can tell us whatever you want, but you're bound by what's in the petition. And OCCA had an obligation to bring us a competent petition. They bear the burden. We do not bear the burden to do their work. They bear the burden to bring us a workable petition. And they didn't do it. And they failed on so many different levels. And I think that what is an important point is that we, without any obligation to do so, no obligation to do so, sent them a courtesy notice directing them to certain deficiencies in their petition. And that letter was sent November 22nd. And in it, we said to them, we have serious concerns about your proposed budget, including the fact that you submitted two separate and conflicting budgets in both versions. In both versions of the budget, you substantially overestimated your revenues and underestimated expenses. Additionally, the charter has a budget narrative that doesn't align with the budget. We told them this. We also told them we have substantial concerns about the educational program. The proposed scope and sequence is not adequately aligned to the California state standards. What does that mean? That means that if a kid goes into the school and doesn't stay in that school and the curriculum isn't aligned, that kid can't come back into our schools and be sure that they can pick up where they left off at OCCA. They're talking about this John Adams School in Northern California. That is nowhere in their petition. It's nowhere in the petition. They have told us all along they're going to be using this Hillsdale and Barney Charter School Initiative curriculum, and that's what they were going to use. And now all of a sudden, yesterday, we get this John Adams charter school thing, classical academy thing. That has nothing to do. It's not in the four corners of the document. It's nothing that I can rely on. And frankly, just because you say it doesn't mean I believe it. We expressed concerns about the SELPA, about the special education, about all of that. So this is November 22nd that we expressed these concerns to them. We don't have to do this. This was a courtesy notice. When do we get a response to that? Yesterday. Yesterday, they submit a response with a bunch of excuses, reasons, whatever. I've been a lawyer for 27 years, and in the legal world, they call that sandbagging. That's what they call it. At the last minute, you dump a whole bunch of stuff in somebody's lap, and you tell them to go look at it. That's not okay. That's not what we do. It's not our job to do your job right. If you can't do the job, you shouldn't be a charter school. Talking about the staff report. So the staff committed 500, 600 hours. Our staff is highly trained, highly qualified. We had a legal team look at this. They produced a 16-page recommendation. Somebody talked about Unity and TLC before and how we didn't approve them, and they went to the county and were approved. You know what? Our staff warned us of exactly the problems that Unity and TLC are having. Again, Wonderful, wonderful concepts. These are great concepts, but the staff had concerns about their fiscal viability. And guess what? Their fiscal viability is threatened right now because they can't do it. Exactly what our staff told them is the exact problem they're having.
Yes, it's a fact.
It's a fact that they have fiscal issues? I mean, no, that their viability, you said viability.
Mm-hmm.
How do you substantiate that? Just because staff commented?
Because staff commented?
Yeah.
So we've shared
No.
with you that one of the charters had to actually pay back funding to.
How is that interpreted as fiscal viability?
They overestimated their enrollment, therefore spent funding that they did not have.
I'm just trying to understand fiscal viability. That's a very strong word, fiscal viability. So that means you're basically saying
Right.
they're
Well,
on the road of bankruptcy or something like that.
As you know, Mr. Ledesma, they are funded by the students, right? ADA, they get money based on student enrollment.
Right.
They overestimated their student enrollment, just like almost every other charter in the county.
And they
Generally
probably-
speaking, that's what happened. They did
And they
not get
probably
the money.
adjusted their budget for it.
No, they haven't been able to, and they owe us 200 and how much
Yes, they do.
thousand
They
dollars?
owe us, and they're paying us, right? But what does that have to do with fiscal viability? They're still an entity. They're still going forward.
These are warnings that our staff as professionals warned us about, and it seems to be coming to fruition. Now, I hope that they make it. I do. I think they're great people. I think they're great charters, and I hope as partners that they make it. But the point of this is our staff told us this might be a problem, and it is a problem for them. And again, I hope they make it because I think that particularly with TLC, I think they have a wonderful idea. I think it's great. But it's very expensive to fund half of your students being special education and the other half not.
But this is a one-sided issue here because staff is giving us all this input without any corresponding input from the other side to offset.
Yeah,
So we're
no,
only hearing one
their
side of the story.
input was actually the petition that they submitted. That's
Right,
their
right,
input.
right.
They present what should be their best
Right.
product.
Let me tell you something. That means it's interpretation of that document, like interpretation of a budget. I do budgets and forecasts for a living. When you do a budget, building a budget, you have assumptions.
Right.
And it could be, and I asked Mr. Rep, maybe your assumptions under which you analyze this budget might be different or wrong.
Well, let's just,
So-
okay, so let
so-
me just talk about
so
this
if
really
we
quick.
can only
I'll
get-
have my
wait.
time, you can have yours, you already did yours, okay?
Well-
I mean, and that's fine, you can address yours.
Yeah, I will,
But just
I will.
let me finish
Sure.
what I was gonna say.
Sure.
There's 3 areas that they said, our staff said are unsound. Unsound educational program, unlikely to be successfully implemented, and does not contain reasonably comprehensive descriptions of all the required elements, okay? Our staff, you talk about the 16-page recommendation. It's because the flaws in this petition are so expansive. They cover 3 major areas. Let's look at our staff for just a second. Our CBO is David Rivera. He's been in the field of public school business for 31 years. Director of Fiscal Services, Accounting, and over 11 years of experience as a CBO. Jenny Delgado, 9 years of private sector financial experience, 21 years in public education, 4 of those as business services director at a charter school, and her job is to conduct budget reviews and certify budgets for all 4 of our charter schools 5 times a year. That is her job. That is an expert in what we do. When I was charter board president at Santiago Middle School, we relied on Jenny prior to me being president, and then once we were there, she was revered as being top-notch. She's on this team that's done this analysis. Kathleen Corella has been in public service for 30 years, OUSD for 9 years. She was a teacher, assistant VP, high school principal for 10 years. She has extensive knowledge about curriculum, as does her team. Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Ernie Gonzalez, studied and learned under the famed Ed Cassay, extensive education and experience in public education. And finally, our superintendent, Dr. Gunmarie Hansen, almost 30 years in public education, a master's and a doctorate from University of Southern California. I don't know about that, but USC. 2 bachelor's degree from Tulane. She's been an elementary school teacher, a high school teacher, a mentor teacher, assistant principal, etc. When she was appointed superintendent, Dr. Delagianni, this is what you said. Dr. Hansen's leadership and commitment is tried and true. Over the past several months as the interim superintendent, she's led the district through the opening of schools, developed a collaborative team, supported the implementation of the facilities bond, managed the crisis in Canyon 2 fire, et cetera, et cetera. Her past leadership as a deputy superintendent has resulted in the attainment of 24 California Golden Ribbon School Awards, expansion of 13 career technical education pathways, innovative STEAM programs, and collaborative relationships with teachers and staff, resulting in numerous awards for OUSD. I look forward to working with her to promote our schools with top quality education, preparing students for university, technical trades, as well as paid careers. Former President Rick Ledesma said about Dr. Hansen, with a proven track record of success, Dr. Hansen is an incredible asset to the district as we head to the future. She's been recognized for excellent communication skills, ethical leadership, and ability to think outside the box. As an innovator, she established the first Mandarin immersion school program in the county, resulting in increased enrollment. Recently, her leadership team delivered a positive audit report to continue the stellar OUSD fiscal reputation. Dr. Hansen is a highly regarded visionary who will take OUSD to the next level. She is dedicated to the Orange community, committed long-term, and the Board of Education has great confidence in her abilities. Wow, I mean, this is an incredible team that we have. One of the things that we do really well here is we hire really good people. And now we have a team that is just top-notch with, 150 years of experience in the exact things that we want them to have experience in, and they give you a recommendation that is rock solid, is thorough after 500 hours of review. And you're gonna reject it. Why? Why would you reject that? It makes absolutely no sense. So the other thing, we have a report from Mr. Rivera. According to our 5-year budget projection, if this charter school is approved and their numbers are correct, which their numbers are correct, we're going to lose more than $13 million in our reserves if we approve OCCA. So I want to know what programs you're willing to cut. Do you want to cut the Mandarin immersion program? Do you want to cut the Spanish immersion program? How about the aviation program or the what are we going to cut? Because we're going to have to cut programs if we're $13 million short for 700 students.
No one's connected the
600
dots
students.
on that. No one's connected the dots on that.
Well,
That's a lot of speculation.
okay.
That's some heavy speculation, and how funny that it comes at a time, please,
Okay. Well,
how funny it comes at a time that we have a very
there are
critical vote here.
many, really?
Yep,
Thanks.
really.
Okay, that's all right. So I repeated over and over and over and over and over and over again, this is not about whether you are pro-charter or anti-charter. This is not the issue. So for all the people that came out, thank you very much, but this is about OCCA petition. That's it. I was a charter board president at Santiago. I am not anti-charter. I had 181 individual donors. I was not a teachers union candidate. Yes, I was supported, and I'm super happy because you know what? Our teachers union are OUEA teachers in the classrooms, 1,300 of them every day teaching in our classroom. I'm super happy to have their support. But you know what? I came to this as an individual who was supported in the community. 1,200 individual supporters, 181 individual donations, not just one, but a whole bunch. So I'm going to do what I think is right, and that's why I wanted this position. But this isn't about charter versus anti-charter. Like I said, I was a charter board president, so I wasn't just a parent of a student. I was the charter board president. I believed in it, and I believe in Santiago. But I also have somebody very, very close to me, extremely close to me, that teaches in a charter school, my daughter. And I get every week, I get calls from her because she is extremely devastated. She does Teach for America, and she's devastated over what is going on in an underfunded charter school that's under-resourced, does not have funds for special education, does not have proper support services for English language learners. It's exactly this school. And is this really what we're going to put our children into? As great as the idea might be, as wonderful as you might like classical academy and classical education, this is not the proper vehicle because it's not likely to succeed and give you what you want. The other thing is teacher turnover. That's one thing with my daughter's school. They've had 6 people quit, 6 teachers quit. And when you go to the John Adams Academy that you gave us, you go on there and even the comments that like the school say, the one bad thing is teachers leave all the time. It's a constant turnover of teachers. And that's not just bad for the school. It's devastating to a kid whose teacher in my daughter's school literally walked out of the class in the middle of class and didn't come back. I'm sorry, but that is a thing in charter schools, unfortunately, in charter schools that don't pay their teachers a proper wage. You can't compete. Finally, and I'm going to stop talking, thank you, but what I want to say is, I hear what you said, Mr. Ortega, about the fact that just because you took money from the charter people and you, Mrs. Lebsack, I get it. I agree that you can be, 100% funded by the charter school movement, and you can believe in the charter school movement, and that can be your mission to be part of the charter school movement. And that doesn't mean that you're going to be biased in your voting. What shows that you're not biased in your voting is rejecting a clearly flawed petition. That's what shows us that, you know what, that money doesn't make a difference because you got it right in front of you. And in my opinion, if you are truly a charter school supporter, then you shouldn't vote for this because this undermines the charter school movement. The charter school movement does not want bad charters out there. They do not want failing charters out there. They do not want people that aren't getting a good education. They want to be good for their students, and this is not that.
Next.
Okay, now that it's 12:30. All right, let's try to get some coffee and get awake here. I'm not going to say it's a perfect charter proposal. However, I'm not going to say that there's anything perfect out in this world. I'm going to say that the tent for education is a big tent. It doesn't have to be an either or. It can be a both and. And I love Orange Unified School District. I was a teacher in Orange Unified School District at McPherson. So I know there's great teachers. They are my friends. Excellent teachers in this district, excellent schools, excellent programs. There's no doubt about it. And choice is a good thing. And it's not to have a greater choice is a good thing. I think that the best way to measure success is to see success from the past. And Hillsdale is not a new program. It's not something that just came out. It's been around. It has a record. And I did my own homework on it, and I called people that started Hillsdale charters from all over the nation and asked them about it, and talked to parents, talked to students, talked to the president of Hillsdale from Michigan, Dr. Arnn, talked to some of the people that helped write this charter and supported it through the Hillsdale College. And it's a great program. It's one that, even though, yes, my son graduated from Orange High School, and I am so grateful for the teachers at Orange High. I mean, it's because of Mr. Short that he ended up getting a scholarship for music, went on a full scholarship for music, and he's now graduated from college. And so I'm very grateful to this district for my own son. But I do believe that now to say some of the comments here that we heard tonight about it being a religious parochial school, that is not true. It is not a religious parochial school. It is a conservative. When I talk to some of the people that run the Hillsdale, yes, it's known as being conservative. Conservative meaning in how they interpret the Constitution. that's how it's conservative. And to say that we're not political, I know Ms. Yamasaki said I'm not political. However, let's not be naive here and say that the teachers union is not political. And if you're really unsure of how political they are, I know that as a teacher myself, I didn't really know how political they were until maybe about 5 years ago when I started getting involved directly in the union and started attending conferences myself. And I just wrote an article, and it's right here if you're not sure, because teachers are busy people. So sometimes we're just into our own lives, we're into teaching our kids, into our families, into our community service, and we don't really we understand when we get bumps in our salary pay, we understand when we get bumps in our benefits, but we don't understand what's going on under the surface. But those things are very, very important because they do impact education, they do impact parents, they do impact kids. And I want you to see for yourself if you're not sure. I have evidence right here of how the union is removing rights of parents, is removing rights of teachers, and you need to see it for yourself. And sir, that comment that you made about the spawn of Satan, I just want to address that because actually I heard Eric Hines say it with my own ears. In fact, I recorded him saying it on my phone. And it was not about charters. No, it was about the Supreme Court case between the Friedrichs and CTA. He called the plaintiffs of that Supreme Court case, the spawn of Satan. And who are the plaintiffs? It was not just Rebecca Friedrich. It was the Christian Educators Association, of which I am a part of. So therefore, I was called a spawn of Satan. And yes, I spoke to Eric Hines about it just this summer, 4 years later after he said it. And he did not back down nor backpedal from what he said. He said those words. So I'm not feeling a lot of love with those things. And yes, I am a CTA member. And no, I did not get the support of my union, even though I am an NEA member and a CTA member. But that doesn't mean that I adhere to the beliefs and the ideologies and the political standing that they take. And nor do I believe that education is a monopoly. It is not a monopoly. And we live in a capitalistic society. And the reason is to prevent corruption. Okay? That's why we live in a capitalistic society, and education should no longer be monopolized as any other institution in this country. So that is why I am supporting the Hillsdale Charter. I know. Well, the classical.
I would like to make a
Ms.
motion,
Lepsak, you noted
Mr.
that
President.
probably the charter petition wasn't perfect, but we like the idea of classical academy. Would the board consider doing, if you're going to go for your motion, is to consider having a conditional so that we can work on some elements of that charter to ensure that it is compliant? Because what we wrote in the resolution is not inaccurate. It is not. It is factual. It's based on the document that was presented, and there are some things that need to be modified. One being 360 students the first year. If you look at Orange County charters, the stats, not just in our district, but across Orange County that have opened over the years, they typically open at 50 or 40% of their original projection. And that does mean something to Orange Unified because we have to do a multi-year budget that is aligned to whatever is in their petition. So I would ask that the board think about the impact of what's written in that petition and the impact on what we have to do in terms of our finances, and that you allow, if you're going to go for an approval, which is on the table right now, in terms of a first and a second motion, that you consider the fact that there are things that need to be corrected in this charter, and that a conditional approval pending modifications would be the best way to go, and to allow the
I'll make
hold
a
on.
motion to amend the motion.
Hold on, I have a question
Oh,
for
That's,
Dr. Hanson.
Yes.
Dr.
that's
Hanson,
actually a privileged motion, so what she's saying goes first.
He was the originator of the motion.
I mean, I should be able to speak to it. I mean,
Yes.
this is new information based on my motion, so.
Right.
So my question to you is, if we approve the charter as is, it's done, and don't we go into oversight mode, and you get together with them, and you say, you're deficient in this area, and this area, and this area, let's discuss this?
No, it is the document, and we have our attorney here that can speak up to that. If you approve it as is, it is the way it is, that gets recorded with the County Office of Education. We are then responsible for setting certain pieces into motion to do. We have a first interim budget on the agenda today that does not include the loss of 360 students, which we will need to put in the second interim. So I would like for you to consider modifying this petition to put it to something that is realistic in terms of what they would get their first year in terms of numbers.
Okay, but how about if we call their attorney and ask their attorney if this is something that,
I think that's,
what, I mean, if we're going to collaborate with them, right? I mean, you want a conditional,
well, I
right?
think that, yeah, I think you need a conditional, but that would be something we need to work out. It's 12:40 at night.
Well, why don't we? I
And
mean,
we would need to work that over time. It would take time to do
right,
that. Not,
and that's something that can be asked of this individual, and ask them over time, can you work on this? Because we are too one-sided here. We are now.
no, there is no one-sided here. There is.
Well, now we're hoping we're going to get the opinion of their attorney.
Yeah,
You know, I don't think this, if I could
Okay,
just jump
so-
into that debate, I don't think this is a negotiations kind of a point.
No, it's not a negotiation.
it's not appropriate to do it in a session, in a board session, to have lawyers negotiating. We need to do
They're
that
not
outside.
negotiating. They're just saying collaborating on a conditional.
Okay,
I'm not
look,
comfortable with this right now.
there's a motion right now, there's a second from Dr. Diligiani. We've had discussion on this, as stated. The superintendent is interjected with what she is trying to seek. But until these motions are amended, we vote on as stated.
And I made a motion to amend the motion.
Go ahead and make it.
Okay, so my amendment to the motion would be that it be a conditional approval on the condition that they file an amended petition that addresses all of the issues that have been raised by staff so that we can have a petition, a document within those four corners that legally requires those issues to be met, the budget issues, the curriculum issues, all of that. All of these things that Mr. Bucher and Mr. Barkey have said outside the context of the petition aren't binding on them. So if they want to add those into an amended petition and submit it, that should be the condition.
So, for
Because
instance,
the whole thing
would
that we
like to
received
work
yesterday
with,
isn't
if they want to
binding.
work with another
Okay,
school
hold on
as
a
their
second.
model classical academy, we need that added into the petition, the Jane Addams or whatever, the John Adams School.
Okay.
Right.
I
Include-
understand. Hold on a second. I'm trying to deal with this amendment over here.
I second it.
So we have that amendment, Ms. Moffett second. So
Okay,
voting for.
discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, discussion.
Okay, discussion. I'm sorry that you wanted to move this amendment so quickly, because I think we were about to figure out whether, how these two attorneys can work through this conditional, we'd have a result here of the two parties
I would ask.
agreeing
Vina
on a
to come up.
conditional,
I would ask Ms. Harden to come up and
Approval.
discuss it.
on a conditional approval. But now, if we vote on this conditional approval now, if we say no, I don't know if we can bring back another conditional approval.
You can amend the amendment.
Stated as is, there's an amendment to an original motion, therefore, we have to vote on this one, and it does not come back
Well,
by
let's-
Robert's Rules of Order.
Let's
So
have
therefore,
Davina explain it
Another
before.
amendment to a conditional.
Can we have
So-
Ms. Harden
We
explain
only have
it?
one shot at bite of this apple here on this amendment.
Yes.
I just want to try to get it right, if we are going to go down that road. Yep.
Is this on?
They're all on.
Okay, so the attorney for OCCA has indicated that the charter school would prefer just a straight up or down vote. They don't want a conditional approval. They would rather have, I guess, they would rather have a denial that they can appeal than a conditional approval.
That's,
So-
I don't think that's germane. what
So
they want.
I think,
Of course they want it.
well, if it's
May I
not,
ask a
then-
question,
I mean, that's what my,
Can I ask a question?
hold on, that was my motion,
know.
is to approve their charter as presented. And now this conditional thing has been put on it. And so now we know. Right, right. So if we say no to your amendment, then
We
we can,
vote on
we
your
then we
original.
vote on the original approval,
Yes.
my motion.
Yes.
May
Okay.
I just say something to Superintendent? If they want to collaborate with us, this should be the first step in collaboration, is to prepare
I
a
understand.
document.
Well,
but
that comes in,
it's
that comes under
already-
oversight. I think we
Okay.
need to vote.
Okay, look, folks, all right, it's late in the night, so I understand it's important. I never said it wasn't, okay? So therefore, I'm stating is now the board is going to take action on this amendment, period. So the amendment is to do based on what her amendment was, because it was long. I know it's conditional, but based on what she mentioned. So if you're going to vote yes, you're voting on a conditional approval. If you're voting no, you're voting no on the conditional approval. And
And
this
we-
is an
and-
amendment only.
Okay, and if you vote no on the conditional approval, that means we go back to my
To the
original motion
Yes.
to vote on approval of the charter.
Yes.
Does that,
Therefore,
anybody have any
no.
questions?
Ms. Clark, if you can call the roll.
Discussion on the amended motion,
We already did.
is it done?
Well, we can discuss more. I mean,
I thought we were done with discussion.
Is it clarified? Is it clear to
I-
everybody?
I don't know how much more
if
clarification.
you,
you
if you say
question-
yes to the amendment, then we're going to vote on a conditional approval.
If you vote no, if you vote yes on this conditional approval on, which is an amendment, number one, you're approving it conditionally. If you're voting no for the amendment of a conditional. Then we go back to the original motion of voting on this charter, because we already have a first and a second, and it's going to be an up or down vote, yes or no. That's it. It's about as clean as it gets.
And the motion is what the charter has expressed is choosing,
So,
it would like.
so,
Okay, so just to be clear, the motion was to amend the original motion to have a conditional approval
that's yours.
that requires petitioner to file an amended petition that fixes what the problems are. And they fixed those problems with their letter that they submitted to us. So they should be able to file an amended petition that addresses those issues. Because right now, if we accept the petition as is, nothing they said matters, because it's not in writing. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make
We take, as they've submitted, we take their petition as submitted.
So you've already stipulated your amendment. Any other discussion on this? So, again, if
I
you're
would-
voting yes, you're voting for a conditional approval. If you're voting no, you're voting no on the conditional approval.
This is another comment.
Counsel for a
Yes.
legal opinion on
I believe that what the first vote is whether to, we're not voting yes or no on conditionally approving the charter.
Yes, we are.
No,
We're voting on whether
on the
to.
amendment.
On the amendment, just
On
to
the
come in,
amendment.
On just whether to amend the,
to accept the amendment.
right.
I have a bit of conversation, bit of discussion. Would you also allow to be included in your amendment the issue of parent involvement on the charter board? 2 parents elected by the parents?
If that can be part of the amendment, I don't have an issue with that. I guess I want to ask counsel, am I able to accomplish what I want to accomplish is, I want to fix the petition, because right now it's flawed. You submitted some explanations.
Just let her finish, please.
So if they can address those issues, resubmit an amended petition. Will that fix any of the flaws? Or is that?
The flaws are different individuals' opinion. That doesn't necessarily mean it's factual.
It's,
Okay,
I mean, let's be clear.
okay, we already have it on here. Is there any other discussion on this amendment?
Well, I would like to hear.
A conditional approval can be used to have changes made to the charter and/or through an MOU to address areas of concern. The question, of course, would be, what are the areas of concern? The way that you have phrased your proposed amended motion would be to address the concerns as identified by staff in the proposed resolution of denial.
And then I want to add the one about 2 charter board members elected by the parents. Parents elected by the parents.
Well, we have this other, unless Chris wants to restate her amendment.
Yes. It has to go by the originator.
Okay, my requested amendment is that it's conditionally approved upon the filing of an amended petition that addresses the deficiencies that staff set forth in the resolution. That is my request.
Okay?
And what is this, who's got the second on that?
I seconded it.
She's second. Ms. Moffett. Okay,
So can we further discuss? So
Yeah,
that-
I'd like that.
sure.
I just want to, Ms. Lebsack, I think you had some questions?
Right. So would those corrections make it, can they be corrected, is what I'm asking, basically.
That's not really,
I
that's
mean-
not a legal opinion question.
Oh.
There are fiscal issues, and so it's dependent on whether they can make changes that address the concerns.
But we are assuming that it's deficient. We are assuming, these are all assumptions from our staff. They did analysis. Believe me, we have crackerjack staff, they're amazing. But I just think in this case, they did not make proper assumptions, or their assumptions are off, not for any malice or anything like that. It's just their interpretation is different than I think how it would be rebutted. Their interpretation would be rebutted by the petitioners, and that's why the petitioners want to stick with what they've submitted, and for us to vote on that.
But they also said they would take a denial and take it to the county. So-
They said that too. That's if we
So-
don't, if we try, I think if we try to do a conditional
Which says a lot.
approval, if we do a conditional approval, they will,
okay.
OCCA would like to make clear that they did not state explicitly that they would prefer a no to take to the county. They said they would like a straight up or down vote and not a conditional approval.
but we have a conditional approval on the table here. But I think, like I said, I know what staff has submitted to us, and I know all that has been running around, but I think it's very one-sided, and we haven't got the full rebuttal or details from the petitioner.
May I say
So we're missing something here in our vote.
May I say something, Mr. Ledesma? That resolution was written to protect our district from financial as well as educational loss to our current students. We have no problems with the classical education model. Our concern was that there was not an alignment to the standards, and
But does it need to be? I mean, is
Yes,
that charter law that it has to be?
yes, it does.
I mean,
Yes, Mr. Ledesma, it does need to be aligned to the California
it's a
state
charter.
standards.
It's a charter school.
But they do need to have an alignment. Now, the way they do that alignment can be creatively done within the classical.
Interpretation, right?
Yes.
Creatively done,
But they
interpretation, so it's
did not
open to
even-
interpretation.
Mr. Ledesma, they did not even provide an alignment to the content standards. So it's not in the document. So what we're saying is they came back with, which we were happy to see, they came back with and said, well, we can align with this John Adams Elementary School that did have an alignment to standards. So I'm simply asking that we actually write the charter as to what, have them specifically state in there what they're actually going to do now.
I don't have.
Because they came with
I
more
don't have enough
information.
evidence. I don't have evidence coming from them rebutting all that you,
They
all
sent
that whole.
they sent a memo to
no-
us yesterday.
A memo, nothing in detail. So it's, I think we're
That's
missing
why we
something
need to
here.
work together with them. That's why we need to
I
work
think-
together with them. And if you're going to approve this, I'm just trying to protect the district.
I just would like to stick with my motion, but we have an amendment.
So,
Okay.
Dr. Hanson, what you're asking is that they align it with the standards as far as
With the classical education, which we have no problem with, we just simply stated that there was no attempt in the initial charter to take the standards for, let's say, science or first grade and align it to the documents that were provided in Hillsdale. Now, that can be done creatively, and they gave us an example of a school up north, I believe, called John Adams Charter Elementary, and my curriculum staff has reviewed that. They did it, turn it around in a day, and they said, well, why didn't they just give us this? This is what needed to be in the charter, and we didn't receive that. So we're just saying, give us an opportunity to work with them, to revise the document, to put it in the format that we need in order to have proper oversight.
But
That's all.
But we could also vote on my motion, pass it as is, and then the oversight begins. It's the same difference.
No, it's not.
It's the same, you can still,
It's not the same.
they
Mr.
still are going to
Ledesma.
try to meet all the requirements.
No, it's not. It's not the same. And
No, but see, the thing is, I don't know if it's the same, Dr. Hanson. I haven't heard from the other side. I haven't gotten their assumptions.
so
their-
the Education Code 47605.
Please.
If I can read the Education
How
Code.
long do you want us to be deliberating here as you interrupt?
Miss Lebsack, can I answer your question about Education Code 47605C1? Charter schools shall meet all statewide standards and conduct the pupil assessment required pursuant to Section 60605 and any other statewide standards authorized in the statute or pupil assessments applicable to pupils in non-charter public schools. So they have to meet the standards and the assessments. Yes, they do. So this is the education code, and so we simply asked for that in our resolution, was an alignment to the standards, which was not provided. What they provided, which I want to be real clear, is a K-12 curriculum from the Barney Charter Initiative out of Hillsdale College, which had a list of all the documents and activities. But the next step would be to have a curriculum person actually align that to the California state standards. And that's what they failed to do. It was not, there was no cross alignment, there was no pacing. It was only the document that was downloaded from charter from the Barney Charter Initiative of Hillsdale College. So that's one example. The other part is their projections of 360 students. What we know is that the charters, you look at, that's data, that's evidence, that's fact. Charters in Orange County have not 100%. So we just want to be reasonable in their projections and say, okay, if you're going to open, let's be reasonable and work together.
No,
because it's going to impact my budget and the work that we do here in the district for our students.
Their
And
assumptions
I'm really
on their
concerned
budget said
about it.
360 students. So they have some assumptions that we're not privy to, that we are just guessing about what the assumptions were. Okay, I understand that we've got some history on charters, but they chose that number because they've either reached out or done enough marketing and gotten, who knows what they have in terms of membership,
we're guessing.
pre-registered people. So that's why we don't know the other side of the story. And like I said, building budgets and please, folks, building budgets and doing forecasts is my line of business. And I know there's assumptions that and interpretations that are often misinterpreted, misaligned, all that kind of thing when you're doing a budget. So it's very easy to not have the assumptions right, or not
Okay,
not
I'm
interpreted.
just going to
All the
type in for a
assumptions were
second.
based
I
on
think it's a
California.
reasonable request to come to a compromise. I think it's a reasonable request to make it a win-win situation. And I think it's reasonable to ask for an amendment and to ask for you to go back and to do a couple of things that the district's asking. And if you're going to say all or nothing, then I don't think that's good collaboration, to be honest. So I think if we're going to work together, we need to work together, and it needs to start right now.
But, Ms. Lebsack, my question is, what's going to come back to us, Dr. Hansen, and how soon will it come back to us?
Well,
Attorney?
so can I talk about the resolution that we prepared? So
I mean, does that mean we get to
Can I-
dictate? No, I'm just trying, I got a couple questions. Does that mean we get to dictate to them how to restructure their petition and maybe not
our
make?
attorney will work with their attorney, so if you let me explain, we can
Okay.
talk about it. So we have prepared an alternative resolution, 2019-20, which is a conditional approval, which I hope the board would consider. And it's basically,
How handy that you have that
yes,
here.
I do.
I
think.
Who knew, right?
Yeah.
Who knew how we were going to vote?
Well, it's because we have to be prepared for every option. So we do have a conditional approval. We have an option for you to look at, and it would allow us then to work with them, and the attorneys would work together and do that. So we could have that explained by our attorney, and it would create that collaboration opportunity. Okay, so it's a conditional approval, and we have done this in the past. We did this with Unity, and we did work with them. So we have a track record of doing this, and that's why
But
we,
Unity ended up going to the county.
yes.
So how is it that we worked with them?
We worked with them for an entire month to collaborate back and forth. And what happened was when they came back for the vote on the second one, on the next meeting to
Right.
approve their revision,
Right.
what happened was it was a 2-2 because two people were absent, and it failed because of that, because you have to have a majority vote.
So on this conditional, we'll have to have another vote based on the results of,
Not necessarily. If they work with the district and I come to you as your superintendent and say they've met all our requirements, then we're done. You know, we just handle it between our attorneys and we get it done. You know?
I think we're going to have another Unity where we're going to have a packed room like this and we're going to do another 3 hours and we're going to have to vote on a
Can you-
conditional.
Do you want to explain it, Davina? Do any of the board members have questions for our attorney on this?
Well, is the resolution similar to what my amendment is? Because I don't know what
Yes,
the resolution is.
it's the same thing. It's the same
What
thing, and she can
It
explain
says in
it.
the petition and then add those things in it?
Yes, exactly.
So can I change my amendment to adopt that resolution?
It's basically the same thing.
That's,
So can you want to explain it? Do you want to ask her?
So the alternative resolution that we have, which proposes certain conditions, which obviously the board could change, the way that it is set up is it's a conditional approval that also adopts the findings for denial so that if the conditions are not met, then the charter is denied. That's what makes it conditional.
who sets the
And
conditions?
So I was going to read to you what the conditions that are in this proposal are, but of course the board sets the conditions.
You would set it, so
this
she's
is-
going to read what
this
we
is
propose.
A proposed draft. So the conditions that are in this proposed draft are, one, and they're kind of technical because that's how they are, but on or before.
Excuse me real quick, just for clarification, since that version is not in the agenda of which we approved, how do we approve that in the agenda without yellow sheeting it in advance?
Because the Brown Act requires only the 20 words or so on the agenda, and the agenda item that was compliant with the Brown Act says, basically consider an act on the request to approve or deny the charter. The backup documents can be changed just like the board can create their own different motion or different options. So this is still Brown Act compliant, and it's just another alternative.
And it's exactly what we did with Unity. There was an alternative motion or a conditional motion using the same resolution.
The board is not confined by staff's recommendations. It's just the agenda requirement is that there is information on the agenda adequate to let the public know if they want to come down, to have an idea what you're going to talk about, which was approval or denial of the charter. So the proposed conditions are, on or before February 28th, 2020, OCCA shall remediate all of the findings supporting the denial and any and all other concerns of district staff to the superintendent or designee's satisfaction. OCCA must submit a final updated version of the charter incorporating all of these required updates, corrections, and clarifications by February 28th. OCCA submission must, it talks about how many copies to provide. OCCA is encouraged to ask the district superintendent or designee to review and approve components of the updated, corrected, and clarified charter between the date of this conditional approval and the February 28th, 2020 deadline in order to help ensure that OCCA is appropriately addressing and remediating the concerns and complying with the conditions. The updated charter must include the insurance and indemnification provisions specified by the district and its risk management team. 2, on or before January 31st, OCCA shall provide updated budget documents addressing the issues noted in the findings for denial to the district superintendent or designee's satisfaction. 3, on or before January 31st, 2020, OCCA shall provide alternative viable budget documents projecting first-year enrollment of only 100 students and increasing by 30 students per year for the first 3 years of operation, which budget documents also address the district superintendent or designee's satisfaction, the issues noted in the findings for denial, which that's just a budget projection. It's not a limitation on enrollment. And then on or before February 28th, established through updates, corrections, and clarifications to the charter and or submission of additional information to the district, the means by which OCCA will be able successfully to implement its proposed educational program, including necessary professional development and training that is not dependent upon formal affiliation with Hillsdale College and or its Barney Charter School initiative. And then as far as process, so those are the deadlines, and if by those deadlines, those conditions are met to the superintendent's satisfaction, it's just approved. And if they are not met to the superintendent's satisfaction, it comes back to the board, at which time the board can determine that the conditions have been met to the board's satisfaction, or revise or delete any of the conditions, or extend the timelines for conditions. And if the board does not do any of those things, then the denial that's incorporated, it would be a denial.
I don't see how this is collaborative at all. I mean, if it doesn't meet the approval of the superintendent, I mean, if we're really trying to get to collaboration, I think it gets back to we approve the charter as is, and then we start with the oversight. That's where you get the collaboration.
Can I just say that this was the resolution that's recommended in terms of incorporating all the elements of denial, but you could also have, like we did with Unity, to go negotiate and go back based on a conditional approval, getting those things in that are very important, like the standards and the budget, worked out. So you don't have to take all of that, but you could still, she gave you an example of some of the elements that go into a conditional approval using the resolution that we provided, but you can say, as a board, you can decide what goes in there. You can say, well, I want the standards piece done, I want certain elements, I want at least a minimum of the liability and the indemnification.
I would say a true collaboration is for the two attorneys to collaborate and come up with a new resolution of conditional approval. I mean, that's true collaboration, and then they bring it back here, and we approve that, and then they work together on the deficiencies.
First of all, what to me is it all being scripted in an end around for the Board of Education. And I'm not saying it for political purposes, but as I'm sitting here listening, this was all scripted. I didn't know how I was going to vote. And I'm
sorry.
There's no script here.
Sorry.
Would you guys just please?
Yeah, there's no.
I asked for respect, and if you want it back in return, then you're showing the character of who you are then. So therefore, we're in this position, okay, we make the decision on this. And so, to me, I'm sitting here listening to all this, and all of a sudden, cop mode jumps into gear of what's being presented to me. I've never seen this amended resolution. And we're talking about amendment from Ms. Erickson that is almost mirrored to this.
It's because I'm a
Resolution.
lawyer and I kind of know
I
how we're
understand.
supposed to do these things.
Well, I understand.
I don't know why it wasn't offered to us as we were
I've
deliberating
never
about.
seen the resolution either. So if you're
hold on,
accusing me
hold
of
on
having
a
done
No, 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 no.
Hold
no,
on,
no.
hold
I'm-
on.
Please.
Okay, I'm
No,
speaking.
no, no, I'm not.
Therefore, what I'm saying is, for me, my antennas start to go up. And I don't appreciate that. I honestly don't. Because this is being dropped on us. I have not read word one of what has been the ink on that piece of paper. And that to me is very disrespectful in every which way. Because you're not being transparent, as everybody likes to use, with us who have to make this decision. And then we get looked at as, oh, the board's doing this, and then it happens to be, oh, wow, look, we have a new resolution. Go figure. And I haven't worked, and I'm supposed to sit up here with all of my other 6 colleagues and make a decision on this, on something I have not read. But I'm supposed to sit here and listen to you based on what this has been written on. That is inappropriate. It is unprofessional, in my word. And so,
I would
it's
say
just-
having a backup plan is the epitome of professionals.
we
I
should have-
think-
Well-
I agree.
excuse
This
me,
backup plan-
you guys spoke, so therefore I was speaking. You know, and again, it's just, I'm not going to keep going on and on. We can go on, it's already 10 after 1 in the morning. And nobody starts to think rational, at this time of day. Now, the next day, Friday. And so, it sounds like it, and the meaning is, well, until the superintendent's satisfied. Well, what about the Board of Education? We're the ones that are making this decision, yes or no. And if it's no, they go to the county. Just like the last 2 have gone to the county, and the last 2, guess what? Especially the last one, the most recent, I didn't vote for. So let's not make it sound like everything is, copacetic and hunky-dory. So anyway, I just, again, I usually don't really say much, but when it comes to stuff like this, I really don't appreciate it. I really don't. As long as I've served on this Board of Education, I've been collaborative with staff, the community, and everybody. But to me, this right here is a very, very unprofessional.
Let's have the
My-
superintendent
Well, my question is,
explain.
how come we didn't discuss this a week ago, or even when the petitions first came up, that we could always do a conditional, right? We never had any discussion about that until tonight.
Because
Why wasn't that ever explained to us?
because when I asked you all to come in and to discuss it, I discussed it with Ms. Lebsack when she came in. She knows what a conditional is. I asked for an appointment with you and Mr. Ortega, and we were unable to meet. So I'm not sure, I have to go where the board's willing to go, and I'm your staff, and you're going to direct me. So it's an option, I'm going to put it out there. I did not have an opportunity to meet with the 2 of you, although I reached out several times.
No. You did not reach out several times. It's good to say that you reached out several times, but today you were. I'm not even going to go there. No, what I'm saying is all our options. Our options
It's
was
just
to
another option for
right,
you to
but that
consider.
could have been shared with the entire board in a Friday packet. Consider this a conditional approval of the petition and explain to us. But for it to be, you're trying to explain it here at 10 after 1, and Mrs. Lebsack is thinking, oh, conditional, that's going to be a collaborative, work together
It
kind of
can be.
approach.
It can be.
Well, it sure didn't sound like it on this resolution that you said to Mrs. Erickson, Ms. Erickson, that here's the resolution. This becomes yours now. So
Well, no, it's a sample. What it is it's a sample of what could be an option.
But it's what we're
What
voting
Ms.
on.
Harden said was you can amend what you'd like to see in a conditional approval.
But we haven't even read it, is my point.
You don't need to, because what happened is, the issue is that when you did Unity, Mr. Ortega, and we're all tired, and I apologize, I don't want to upset anybody. I'm tired, we're all tired. When you approved Unity, you did not even have a piece of paper. I thought I was being more prepared for you to have an option for you. When you did the conditional approval for that, what you did was you put on the agenda with that resolution, it was conditional, and that the staff would work together with the petitioners to come to an agreement on the issues. And with that, we got through some and we didn't get through others. So, I mean, that was where it went. It wasn't an official paper that we brought to you, but it was a discussion that we would work together, and it was a conditional approval to work with staff. And so I brought a document. I'm sorry it was offensive. I'm over-prepared. I'm an overachiever. I didn't, you guys can...
It should have been given to us,
Right.
given and explained to us a month
But you don't have
ago.
to do anything with it. That's why I haven't passed it out.
No, but
So
then
you-
why, it's such a viable option right now, though, this is the thing. Why wasn't it given to us and explained to us a month ago?
Because
We're in this charter process.
Please stop.
Okay, look, folks, we have this amendment on here that we need to vote on for a conditional. And I do agree, we talked about this again in closed session. This could have been brought to the full board in closed session, but it was repeated again, the same thing as what the resolution states. So, however you view it, but there's an amendment right now. So basically, if you're going to vote yes, you're voting for a conditional approval. If you're voting no, you're voting no against the amendment, and we go back again to the original stated and seconded motion for approval. All right? Everyone clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Do a roll call?
Yes, Ms.
Would you state the motion just to make sure everyone,
Oh, my.
Wait. Mrs. Yamasaki's got a question.
they all understand?
Can I request that we do an electronic vote?
My computer's not working.
It'll pop up, your vote will pop up, but then that way you're not influenced by another board members and how they
You're
vote.
only able to do the electronic on the original, not the amendment.
I've actually changed one of them. I have an opportunity to have 3 motions on the floor. So we have one motion, it's recommended that the Board of Education deny. Then we have another one, it's recommended that the Board of Education approve. And then we have another one, it's recommended that the Board of Education amend the motion and add conditions to the approval and have petitioners address the issues. So you have your choice.
Where to go from here?
So we're on the amendment right now, so we're asking, basically,
So that one says it is recommended that the Board of Education.
Do we have to take the amendment, or can we not vote on the first motion?
Have petitioners address the issue.
if the,
Staff have found in the Orange County Classical Academy Charter petition.
I don't think we have to.
Then that way they're not influenced.
by staff.
Yeah, you did, that's what you did in closed session.
Spell that right?
Yes, we do. We have to. We don't. No, because we take the amendment first and then to the original motion.
And then it fails. If it fails, and you go back.
Okay, for time purposes, if we can just vote on this, so again, your yes vote is for conditional, a vote no is no conditional, and we go back to the original. So therefore, all those in favor of a conditional approval, say aye.
No.
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 I changed my mind.
Who said aye?
I did.
Ms. Erickson, Ms. Yamasaki?
I haven't voted. Aye.
Aye. Therefore, it is,
Wait, this is on the amendment, right?
This is on the amendment.
On the,
it is,
wait, this is on the amendment, right?
This is on the amendment.
On the amendment.
yes,
I said no.
correct.
So it's 4 noes and
So
3
it's
yeses.
4 noes, 3 yeses.
Okay.
So now,
Now we go back to the original motion.
we go back to the original motion.
Wait a second, I thought we just adopted the amendment.
No. We voted on it to say if you voted yes, you're voting on conditional approval. If you're voting no, you're voting no on the amendment.
This is on the amendment.
On the amendment,
Yes.
I said no.
Correct.
So it's 4 noes and 3
So it's
yeses.
4 noes, 3 yeses.
Okay.
So now,
Now we go back to the original motion.
we go back to the original motion.
Wait a second, I thought we just adopted the amendment.
No. We voted on it to say if you voted yes, you're voting on conditional approval. If you're voting no, you're voting no on the amendment.
voted.
And going back to the original, as I stated.
I didn't vote on this thing.
Did you vote yes or no?
It's not up, so that's why, for time constraints, it's,
You can't have two concepts. If you vote no, it's about this, and if you vote yes, it's about this.
it's not
The amendment has been voted on.
the amendment that
Up or
she
down?
put forward, it was up or down.
The amendment has
Now we
been,
go back to the.
now we go back to the original
Or
motion.
no's.
No, there was 4 yeses. 1, 2, 3.
I didn't say yes.
I heard you say yes.
No, I said yes to yours. Because I had already voted and you hadn't.
Just do it again.
No, let's
So
vote
anyway.
on my original motion.
Okay, so now we're at the original motion. Mr. Ledesma made it. Dr. Diligiani, I believe, seconded, if I'm correct.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so we have that. Are you ready to? We can vote electronic on this one.
So the motion is to accept the petition as is.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the motion. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve or deny. Just-
No, no.
No,
It's just to approve.
approval.
Okay.
This is a motion
Sure I
to,
choose the right one.
yeah, motion to approve the charter petition as is.
Okay, so let me get this right. It's your motion,
Mr. Ledesma moved it.
and the second is
Diligiani.
Delagiani.
Second. And you received the amendment, was
You're gonna
it
see it up
4-3?
there. He's running back to make sure you see it up there.
You got the amendment, right?
You said this was just to accept it.
No, I understand the prior vote.
You guys didn't pass. That was.
Correct. I just want to make sure. Yeah. Just so there's clarity.
Here we go.
Vote without a mouse.
You tell me I can do it.
Okay.
You say it out loud. So this is
I can't believe people are still here, to be honest.
Okay. So this is,
Does that budget?
Can we take a vote now? Nothing's coming up, so we
Okay,
need
nothing's
to,
coming up. So all those in favor of approving Orange County Classic Academy, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
no.
Okay, passes 4-3. Remember November,
Will
good
we-
for you. Well, that's,
Go get some sleep.